Call to order the pre-council meeting for today, Monday, September 20th. Presiding Honorable Mayor Bob Odenkirk.
We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Odenkirk.
Here.
Councilman Clement.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Guerrero.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Here.
First on the agenda is citizens to be heard on agenda items. First is Barry McHugh regarding Council Memo 432-21.
Barry McHugh, 808 Mason Avenue. And I'm here on the 429 Buell Avenue special variation. The story on that one is the current owner bought it under the impression that it was legal and acceptable to rent on it. Turns out that his lawyer, his real estate agent, the previous owner, failed to tell him it was an R2 and not an R3. The Buell property was turned into an R2 from the research I've done in 1995. So it's been an R2 for quite a while. It was at one point, probably in the early 20th century, an R3, but it's been an R2 for over 25 years. I would recommend that you reject the special variance. The primary reason I would, there's all kinds of different ones, but the main one being you set a precedence when you do this. What's happened here and has happened on other houses and is happening on a not continuously, but it happens. Somebody buys a house, they believe they can rent it out, they start renting it out, and then through no fault of their own, they have to do a modification, they get a zoning check, and they are not to do it. So the person who gets stuck is the new owner. And who is being rewarded when you do this? You're rewarding real estate agents, you're rewarding lawyers to not do their due diligence. That's what you're doing. As you continue, or if you continue to do this on multiple properties throughout the city, I've only been doing this for a year or two, and I keep seeing them pop up. It happens here in Joliet. You're going to create a precedent where anybody asks for it, and if they get rejected, they go, well, how come me? Why am I different? So I believe you need to have consistency and protect the integrity of your ordinances. And not reward people who should know that that's not available for renting and still sell it and profit from it. And everybody around in the area can see that as a potential business model for Joliet. And I strongly recommend you not to approve it.
Thank you.
Next is Kamar Tiller, Council Memo 432-21.
Hello, I am the owner and petitioner for the 429 Buell Avenue and 426 Division Street. He is correct that there was a concern of precedence, but as we gone through the process, I've actually spoke with the planning staff, and they said they take it as a case-by-case basis. They see each one as a different opportunity. They look at what's going on with the property, how long it's been there, and if there's already precedent. Like clearly in my packet, I actually have the seller's memo about the property, and it actually mentions there that you can rent out that property for $800 to $900 a month. My real estate agent and my lawyer, neither one was local to the area. Neither was my appraiser, who actually ended up coming in and doing the final one. So for us, this is an income stream. We naturally move most of that money into investing back into the property, making sure things get fixed. Right now, we're trying to do more work to make it more presentable, more habitable for the property, so it has more long-term health. And of course, as we go forward, we just seek to do our best to find the right people to rent from us for the right way. Of course, we have already met everything, all the guidelines from neighborhood services and from the planning staff to make sure that we're up to code with them, with what they want us to have, and to ensure that, you know, I want to make sure that I have the right people living on the property. I also go through certain steps with, you know, background checks, eviction checks, credit checks, all those things. And of course, I have the tenants pay for that to just ensure that they're actually serious. And with my 2 young kids living on the property along with my wife, I take it very seriously, and I just want to ensure that it's the right fit for not just my house, but for the neighborhood as a whole.
Thank you. I have a question. The property in question, is this like an old coach house or servants' quarters? What exactly, it's not a garage that was remodeled, correct?
So the original coach house was built in 1898. In 1968, they tore it down and rebuilt it. Because right now it's, you know, it's built with concrete, so of course that wouldn't be the old wooden structure that would have been there at that time.
So when they rebuilt it, was it built as a garage or was it built as a residence?
From everything I can tell, I think it appears that the apartment was built there to be there originally, because it was an R3, I believe, at that time. And the downstairs is more where I typically do my woodworking, stuff like that.
Question, man.
Yes.
Sir, did I hear you correctly? You, your wife, and your 2 children, you live on premises?
Yes, we do.
So you're owner occupied?
Yes.
And then you rent, you are looking to rent as the other person
So we
presented to you that you could rent in the sale?
We do rent. We rent currently because, as he said, we did not know previously that it was not zoned properly. So we do rent currently. We've had the same tenant since 2018.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nathaniel Washburn, Council Memo 434-21.
Before we move on, Mayor, I'd
Yes.
like to comment on this house. I know this house, I knew the family that lived there before, and they have 2 different addresses now. The one that he's talking about, it's not really a coach house. I believe back in the day, it was a swim house, because they had like a built-in pool off to the side, which they got rid of many, many, many years ago. It was dug over. And it was for people to go swimming, because back in the day, believe it or not, that was one of the richest houses in Joliet, and the tenants had a built-in swimming pool, which was unheard of for the day, and that was a swim house, which they're calling a carriage. So, the current, the owners before this young man, they updated that place, and they had her mother living up there, and it does have a separate address. It's called 426 Division. Now, the issue comes with the garage, the four-car garage with the game room on top. That is never to be an apartment. It was totally built when the couple bought this house and remodeled it back in the late 90s, early 2000s. They built a 4-car garage with a game room upstairs for their kids. That is not an apartment building. It's just for the family to have someplace like a recreation room. But this little place in the back, which they're calling the carriage house, is what I'm told from back in the day, that's what it was for. But it was currently totally remodeled by the Darley family that had this house. And as I said, her mother lived up there for many, many years, and then I believe they rented it somewhere along the line to someone that worked at the University of St. Francis. Because I did call her about a month ago when I saw this on the zoning board. So the issue here is the change in zoning, the special use permit, because on one hand, that back carriage house does have its own address. So does that make it a tiny single family home? I don't know. If we change the zoning to give special use for R3, then eventually the upstairs of the garage could be turned into an apartment. And the cathedral area, for years, I've been getting these houses downzone, downzone, downzone to back to single family, and that's why we have the beautiful Western Avenue, Buell, and all the houses that we have today, because of those ordinances back in the 70s, all the downzoning issues, take these beautiful homes that were cut up during the 30s and the 40s when there was a housing shortage, and now they're back to single family and they're beautiful mansions. So this issue is really, really, really tight. So I know that the 426 division has its own address, which is on 429 Buell property. So I don't know how to get around this one. Sabrina, do you have any suggestions?
Well, I mean, I know that one of the conditions is that obviously if it's not owner occupied, that it can be revoked, but other than that, I guess I'm not understanding what you're asking. You want to make sure that the 426 doesn't become a multifamily?
Well, no, it'll be a single family. What I'm concerned about is the garage. Once you change that zoning, the garage can be upstairs, can build another apartment.
I guess I would ask Jim, Tori, is there any condition with respect to the garage?
So the garage with the game room above it could not be turned into a residence without seeking a variation of use for 3 units on the property and 3 separate structures.
So it'd be R4.
That would be right. Yes,
But how do you
R4.
explain the part in the back that has its own address, 426 division? How is it on the tax rolls? Have we looked
It's a
into that?
through street, so this situation is complicated by having Buell, it's a through street on a corner, actually. It's Buell, Nicholson, and Division in the back. So it was just an addressing thing because they were able to give it a separate address because it faced a separate street. We see a lot of properties that have multiple structures on it that have to take the address off the main street because there's no other option.
But it wasn't a house, it was just a addition for the swim thing at the back in the day. It was a swim house, it had separate rooms where the ladies could go and the men could go, and,
That is correct.
Yeah.
It does have separate rooms, and we can actually see the plumbing in the basement.
right.
But the carriage house actually has its own utilities and separate water. Everything else, it has on electricity and its own gas. It's separate bills, everything from the main house.
Right, but the address is what's confusing me, because it has its own address, so when this property is filing their taxes, how do we do that when you've got 2 addresses at that home? I have not seen this before.
They would all be under the same tax number with separate addresses.
But why does it have an address at all when it's part of the main house?
Because it had 2 separate streets where it was able to receive 2 separate addresses.
Yeah, but we have a lot of places in Joliet where the garage faces another street, but they have take the address of the main home. They don't have a
Yes.
separate address.
But this one had a residence at least dating back to 1954 is when we discovered in our research that a separate residence faced Division Street.
Can I interject for just 1 second? And
Sure.
that,
I
it
wanna
probably
get
has,
this
yes.
right.
What happened here is it still has the property tax number is the PIN number, and that's why they only have 1 property tax bill, even though there's 2 separate addresses.
So is that part included in the tax bill? That's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
figure out.
yes, it would be.
It doesn't get a separate one?
No, it won't, because the property is all 1 PIN number. So even though there's 2 separate addresses on the property, for whatever reason, how they did that, the tax assessor only assigned 1 property identification number to the entirety of the property.
So, and then on the other hand, if we do the special variance, if you go to sell it, the new property owner doesn't have to live there. You can't make that a condition. You did that because you agreed to that. For 6 months out of the year, you agreed to that. But as a special variance, it goes with the property, it doesn't go with the owner. And that's my issue.
Yeah, I don't know about the conditions that the new owner would face.
Yes, those conditions would remain the same. It'd be the new owner of the main house would have to live there at least 6 months out of the year in order to rent the back. Even though it wouldn't be this owner, the new owner would have to adhere to those same conditions. Like you said, they would go with the property.
So that
They would
would
stay
go
with
with
the
the property where he's the owner and has to live in there for 6 months out of the year?
The
Owner
n-
occupied?
Yes, this owner,
I just don't believe
And
that's
a new
correct,
owner.
because I remember back in the day, it goes with the property, period. And I would like to look into that a little further. So, having said all that, I mean, I was at the welcoming party for you, I don't know if you remember me,
Remember,
okay?
I remember.
But you know, we've been on this for many, many years. That's what makes that neighborhood so great, is the non-rentals. And it was come to my attention today that the house to the east of you just sold, and the owner wants to make that into apartment buildings, and will be coming to us for variance. So this is my concern. Now the trend is starting.
Well,
This is my concern.
that,
Of his, tell her.
so, him, I have not spoken to him about that at all. I haven't spoken to him on that whatsoever.
You know who I'm talking about, don't you? The owner?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't seen him give any indication of that, but once again, I do know that, like, the planning staff has told me that they do take it on a case-by-case basis as is. So, I don't know how they'll receive that one with him at all.
I have an email from him right now. And he says, I believe accessory apartments are good for the cathedral area. We need to have more of these on the premises, and I bought the house just to the east of that house, and I plan on doing the same thing. So I'm not sure, I think that's an R2 house. We could look into that, but just for the record down the road here, tomorrow, I would like to get this table till all this gets straightened out. The addresses, the houses, and exactly what we can and cannot do in the ordinance.
I do know that it can be revoked if the property is found to be a nuisance at all from the city council, of course.
It's harder than you think.
I'm sure. I'm sure there's a lot of bureaucracy and such that goes into that.
I mean, your house is beautiful right now. I know the Darleys did it inside and out. I've been in there several times. I've been in the back, I mean, in the garage. It's a beautiful, beautiful home, beautiful home.
Yeah, and we, of course, are striving our best to take care of it as is.
Exactly.
Whenever of course, regardless of where I am, if I find something wrong with the property, I will drop everything to come fix it. Especially when it's wrong with the rental. There was a pipe burst at one point, and without my tenant there, I would not have known in that property until like water came cascading out the back. But through him alerting me to that, I was able to get someone out immediately to fix it, take care of that.
But if nobody's living there, the water should be shut off.
So we had originally rented it because we thought it was zoned for it. We did not know that it was not at that time. Of course, the second I found out, I did immediately come trying to rectify it.
I understand. Those are my comments, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No problem.
Nathaniel Washburn, 434-21.
Mayor, City Council, thank you for your time this evening. I'm here on zoning matter 434-21, which is a variation of use for 142 Aiken Avenue in Joliet. This is an old house that has been used as a multifamily 2-unit since approximately sometime dating back to the 1930s and has remained such up until present. My client purchased the property in 2018. It's been in severe disrepair, needed a lot of work. He bought the property in order to fix it up. My client has a history of doing this. He's also renovated or in the process of finishing 503 Dover here, which was a house that caught fire. My client purchased that, has rehabbed it, has worked well with city staff to do everything up to code. He'd like to do the same with this property. However, when he went to pull a permit, he was alerted that the property was now zoned R2 and could only be used for a single-family residence. This property and the surrounding neighborhood at one point in time was more or less exclusively zoned R3. There is still a fair amount of R3 zoning in the area. However, I'm not certain as to whether or not those are 1 or 2 family units. However, we would ask that the council consider voting in favor of this to allow it to continue its historic use as a 2-unit. And I and the property owner are here to answer any questions the council might have.
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes,
When was the house built?
When was the house built? I believe it was built in the 1890s or 1880s,
So back then, it wasn't a 2-unit. It was turned into a 2-unit in the 50s.
30s. Yeah.
Okay, the 30s, during the Depression and housing shortage. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Makuska, Council Memo 429-21.
Hi, Michael McCushka with Joliet Petroleum. There is a diagram that's being passed out for the location of the liquor license, the core license for video gaming that we're requesting. If you look at the area that is enclosed by the red broken line there, that's the area that we plan on putting the location in. By the health department, we needed an area that would be at least 6 feet wide. We went 10 feet wide to make sure that our disabled customers have plenty of room to maneuver around there. As far as security goes, we have a lot of cameras there. We have hold-up buttons there. And I think you'll find from talking to the police department in the 58 years that we've been involved with the location, that there's very, very few incidents that require police. Fire department's already looked at the location and approved of what we plan on doing. We have had a liquor license there for 37 years. I've been the manager of that for that period of time. We are very vested in the community, have so for as long as we've been there. Sit on the Council of Regents for Lewis University, Caritas Committee for University of St. Francis, been involved with United Way and their business development group, Christian Brothers Endowment Fund, et cetera. Will County Child Advocacy Center, founding board member, sit on that for 22 years. We are dedicated to the community. When the ordinance was originally passed, I think they were recognizing with the Thornton issue and the subsequent Lambert approaching the Illinois Gaming Commission, that by passing the ordinance, you could look at every person on a case-by-case basis. And I think we've proven over our 58 years that we are very much involved in the community, that we're dedicated to doing a good job. And I respectfully request tomorrow that you approve our request for this video gaming license. Any questions? I understand that there's people that have a opposition to this out of principle, but at the same time, the horse is out of the barn. So the question becomes, do you have legitimate operators that want to work with the city? In the past, when we've approached the city, most recently with a sales tax swap, increasing a sales tax, as Steve Jones said, 3 years later, we did everything we said we were going to do. We actually increased sales beyond our projections. We do what we say. So again, I understand there are some reservations, but there are some good people still left in Joliet that work really hard to make it a decent community. I am still the manager there and will be as long as I am able to make sure that we have a responsible approach to what's going on. Questions? All right, see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Mike.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on an agenda item this evening?
Good evening, my name is Richard Hester. I'm speaking on behalf of the variation of use and special use permit for the self-storage facility on Drought Road. I know I've reached out to many of you and kind of laid out my case on how I'm a quality operator of the business. So I don't know that that's necessarily what's in question here. I think that the only opposition to this might be a fear of the business in general, and either a misunderstanding or uninformed of what the business entails. This business is very low impact in the community as far as traffic, noise, smell, any disruption. The reason we chose this property is because of the limited disruption that it would put on the community with the gas and water station that recently was built next door and the ComEd utility easements that borders the property. The gas station probably has the largest traffic impact of any business that could possibly be put on the site. This facility, I can't imagine any other business that would have less traffic impact. The current facility that I want to operate for 20 years, 25 years,
When I review my gate logs throughout the week, during the week, 10 to 12 vehicles, weekends, maybe 20. So I really can't imagine any other business that would help offset the traffic impact of the gas station. Compared to any other business that would be on this property, and again, it will be a business on this property, it won't be residential, the gas station is there, their driveway has an easement through this property, so there's going to be a business there. Compared to any other business that might be there, working closely with zoning, we've made sure to meet the same masonry requirements that any other business would have to meet. We're meeting the same landscape requirements that any other business there would have to meet. Except I feel would be a lot less overbearing on the community. If we look at the gas station that just went in, their canopy, I couldn't even say, maybe 16, 18 feet tall. It's a large structure. I'm looking to put buildings that are 8'6" behind a 3-foot landscape berm. So as far as impact in the community, as far as being overbearing, the look, the design is really gonna be very minimal. The other issue is I think people are afraid of this business. They think that there's an element of crime or something dirty about it. We talked about the public nuisance involved in businesses. When I say that there is no public nuisance with this business, that it's, as I put it in the email I drafted to you, it is a boring business. Low volume of traffic, not a terrible lot going on. When I say that it's not going to be a public nuisance, as we mentioned in the last one, the zoning committee put that as a contingency, that it's determined to be a public nuisance, that the variances can get pulled. Now, when I say that it's not a public nuisance, that carries weight, because I have absolutely no problem with that contingency, and I'm still willing to invest millions of dollars to build this. That's not something to be taken lightly. I know I certainly don't take it lightly. I'm an independent business person. This is a family business. And so when that contingency for the public nuisance is on there.
Could you wrap up your comments, please, sir? We got the 4-minute limit.
Okay, well, does anyone have any questions about the project?
Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, next, the city manager will discuss tomorrow's agenda items.
Thank you. Good evening, council. The first agenda item is 41721, which is the positions, one resulting from a retirement. These are position vacancies, and an equipment operator who is going to be not able to perform the duties that are required of his job, and so consequently he'll be leaving employment, and we're asking to fill those positions that are currently filled or were filled. Next is the 41821, recipient of the 2020 comprehensive financial report, and so that's the milestone of having reached the 2020 audit. So we're asking to approve that, and so we can put it on file. Next is 41921, a request to approve changes to the Bureau of Justice Assistance. And this was for COVID related money that the Department of Justice initially, they were going to put some various blue light, infrared, whatever, to prevent the spread of COVID in areas. Instead, the police department asked for an app that they could be used for health purposes and for some air purifiers in the police station. The Department of Justice agreed to those, but we also need to agree to those changes. Next is 42021, which is to purchase a truck a new police truck for truck enforcement purposes. So we're looking forward to getting that on the street as quickly as possible. So we'd ask that you approve that. 421-21 is also another police vehicle Explorer, and that's an evidence tech van that will be used at various crime scenes to gather evidence. Next is 422-21, which is the award of a contract for the public utilities And this is for water, for wastewater planning. It's a kind of a service program that we have, so we're asking that we go ahead and agree to that. Change order 423-21, which is a change order for the Chicago Street roadway improvements. It contemplates a refund of $211,000, $105.85, and a final payment, though, of $173,853.35. Next is the sanitary sewer rehabilitation program, which has been ongoing, which is 424-21, and that's the performance pipelining to continue our efforts in that area. 425-21 is a change order number 2 to the 2021 drinking water lead and copper, and this is for testing. It's been very successful. They'd like to expand the testing, and to do so, that we'd like another $20,000. We've been replacing a lot of lead pipes that go into houses, and we want to make sure that we're in compliance and the citizens are being well served. Next is 426-21, and that's managed print services, and that's a contract for this company to provide all the services for our printers throughout the city of Joliet. Next is 427-21, which is an amendment for the Sanatorius sewer investigation and rehabilitation program. And this is for a professional services agreement. And this is additional for flow monitoring and remodeling work that was not initially foreseen at the start of the contract. So we're asking to expand that. Next is license and permit applications, 429-21. This is the denial of an issuance of a Class BG liquor license at 1415 Plainfield Road, which was Petroleum, which we heard from that gentleman this evening. Next is the issuance of a Class B liquor license, 430-21, for at 411 South Larkin Avenue for Posh Banquets. And the recommendation is for approval for that. Ordinance and resolutions, 432-21, and it's the it was something that you had heard earlier about the existence of approving a variation for the use of a continuous rental unit above the garage, the 2-unit. So we've heard quite a bit about that this evening. Next, 433-21, and that's the variation to allow the self-storage unit, which the gentleman spoke here on this evening. 434-21, ordinance approving,
Yes, Jim.
Yes, sir. Mayor, on 433-21, this is a parcel that's completely surrounded by District 1, which, of course, I was elected to represent. And when it looks for special use permits, regardless of the type of business, there's a certain list or categories and classes of business that require it, because they have to be measured against the best and highest use, is really what it comes down to for that facility. I've gotten roughly 3 dozen calls, and all have been against it from the people that live there, concerns with that business there, for their concerns as it pertains to their neighborhoods around there, as well as the school, which is a stone's throw away. But also, too, back, without pointing backwards, at a time that they built out District 1, there's probably only 20% of the main roads like Drought and Caton Farm, Theodore, that actually can accommodate commercial retail, and that's the best and highest use for that. It's in scarce supply out there, and people are aware of that as well, too. I know it was brought up today by a speaker about traffic. People aren't concerned about the traffic, they're concerned about what's being offered on that premises. And essentially, I won't continue unless we have a further discussion. We all voted to be patient and wait for something that served the community better as the best and highest use at the corner of Jefferson and Larkin. Indoor-outdoor storage was proposed there. We all said, no, that's not good for that area or for those neighborhoods. We need to see if we can get a better and higher use, which turned out to be Tony's. And people are ecstatic. And that's exactly what the residents of District 1 are asking for, that we deny the special use. They don't want a storage facility where, in limited space, other more beneficial businesses could go that don't need a special use permit. So I would certainly ask those to consider the voices of the citizens of District 1 and deny this special use petition.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman. Next is the 434-21, an ordinance approving a variation of use for a series, this is again, a residential 2-unit and R2 single family. Again, but this particular residence is not owner occupied. Next is 435-21, ordinance amending the 2021 annual budget of the city of Joliet and award a contract for plan review software and hardware project. This is what the CIO, Mr. Brainer, had come in and talked to everyone about the planning software. That is an upgrade for the city so that we can get architects to electronically submit their plans to the city of Joliet and move us forward in the right direction.
Mayor, can I ask Jim a question?
Yes.
Jim, and this will be new to you. I had suggested this a couple of years ago, I think. We seem to have a 20th century problem that we have to find a 21st century solution to on these things. And they seem to come in little waves, right? And it seems that the most common denominator, and I believe this gentleman completely, especially since he's living with his family, that it's in some way through oversight or misrepresentation, it gets confused at the closing, right? During the process. Even if that means, and if you need a vote from this council, and you'll certainly bring it to the appropriate committee and bring it here, if we need to have an outside consultant do it, because, I mean, we do have a lot on our plate with development, community development. We need to go through and look at this so that then, once we make a list in the areas here that should no longer be, in other words, they were kind of grandfathered and okay, they've owned it for 30 years, we'll let them, but upon sale, it needs to be clarified. And I think if we make that list, we could probably send that to the appropriate township and attach that to the PIN. Then in the future, there will never, ever be an opportunity for anybody not to tell a buyer that, for any reason, that, you know, yeah, once you buy it, you can't do that anymore. Does that make sense to?
Let me take a look into that.
Okay.
I think that's not necessarily a bad idea. I don't know if it's doable or not, but let's see what we can do to get to that end result.
And Jim, you have the authority, you know, 20,000 under that, you know, depending on what it is, that you can move forward if you find out it's doable.
Let me figure out something if we can go forward and if it's.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Next is the 436-21, an ordinance amending chapter 4 of the city code ordinance for BYOB provision and amending the definition. And that's for premises that are currently uninspected and unlicensed. This amendment will require them to be licensed and inspected. Currently, that's not the case. Next is the 437-21. It is the ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 9, Division 7, Section 2-313.12, and that's the authorization to create subcommittees and memberships. Currently, the Joliet Art Council has 17 voting members. They are authorized 17 voting members, and we do not have, and they're asking for an additional 7 non-voting members, and the authority is what they have currently now is to be able to shut off or not be able to add additional people. And what I want to do is say, I don't understand the why we would have non-voting members. This was an initiative brought forward by me. If we already have 17 members, which is larger than the city council that are voting members, we get a lot done in this city without as many voting members, let alone non-voting members. I believe that's inappropriate to have, it's just a bloating of kind of the government. The mayor wouldn't be allowed, or the mayor does not have the authority to appoint the non-voting members. The actual art council does, and that's the only case where that is. So I just want to bring it in line with the way the rest of our other councils are, the planning board, the zoning board, so that we are mirroring the way we do the rest of our business. I'm not asking in this particular ordinance that we remove people who are already appointed, but when their terms expire, they'll not be replaced for the 7 non-voting members, if that makes sense. Yes, ma'am.
So I feel like this, you know, the Arts Commission is a unique body, you know, I mean, just the arts in general is unique. And I see, why would we limit the conversation, and the, you know, knowledge of other people, reaching out to other people in the community that have varying skills to kind of help us bring in the different areas of art in the community that we'd like to do. You know, it's hard to get people involved and bringing them in as non-voting members. It's just kind of filling subcommittees and things of that nature. I just can't see us wanting to turn away anybody that would like to be a part of it.
Well, if we were to follow that logic, I mean, anybody who's on the zoning commission, we could have that many people as well. I believe that there needs to be a kind of a limit because it gets unwieldy at one point. How many different committees are there? What's going forward? What projects are they working on? So far, we've had the art committee here for quite a while. We have yet to have any substantive movement out of them, except for them to come forward and ask for COVID money after they said that if we created them, that they would not do so, ask the council for any money. So I just believe that it becomes unwieldy. If these people want to come forward and they have great ideas, that's what public comments are for. Just here, like here in Joliet, anybody is welcome to come forward. So I don't see the utility of having non-voting members. I mean, each and every citizen in theory is a non-voting member of this council, because they can come forward and state their claims. So that's.
Well, in fairness, I think they've only been in a committee for 2 years now, and one of them was COVID. So, I mean,
right.
It's kind of hard to get things rolling in that climate, but,
Right.
I just don't like the idea of anybody that's interested in moving forward on the arts, especially, you know, being turned away, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor? Yes. Jim, I would agree. Now, how everybody wants to do as far as letting folks, you know, be in a subcommittee, you know, that's not that important to me. But no, you can't add people without council oversight, which actually comes through the mayor with our, so I do agree with you on that. I mean, right, you create a rogue department or a rogue.
Yeah, even non-voting members are being appointed without the mayor.
It has to be appointed and we, you know, with the consent of the council. Otherwise, I mean, we're the ones that answer to the people. We have to answer to the people, and we swore we would.
Right.
So that part does this, I wouldn't be able to support that. It can't be just a
If they're gonna add people, why not just make them voting members then? At that point, we can have 40, 50, 100, it doesn't matter at that point.
I'll leave that for greater minds.
Okay. Next on the agenda is 43821, an ordinance amending the numbering of the city of Joliet Code from renumbering chapter 6.5 to 7, and it has to deal with bicycles. The next is the 43921, and it's the ordinance amending chapter 4, article 6 of the tobacco regulations, section 4-81, and that's to bring us in compliance with what the state of Illinois' rules and regulations are. Next is 440-21, which is the an ordinance amending chapter 21, article 5, division 1, section 21-64, and that's restricts what type, currently that restricts what type of clothing people can wear based on their gender. It's outdated, old, antiquated, and no longer reflects the social norms, so that should be removed. 441-21, ordinance amending chapter 2, article 13, division 2, section 2-447, which is the ordinance of city code ordinances for amending a procedure for pre-documentations. Currently, right now, when somebody comes in and they have to be pre-qualified, and then we allow them to submit a bid for a contract. And what we're saying now is this will allow them to submit the bid and the pre-qualification together, so we don't make them come in twice. So it speeds up the process for everyone involved. So that's a good move, and that's a move in the right direction for us. Next is 442-21, which is a resolution associated with Cherry Hill Business Park, and that's for them to have some off-site easement for storm detention and continue to move forward with their development of their property. Next is ordinance and resolution associated with 3501 Shanahan Road, which is 443-21, and that's to allow for truck parking, and so for annexation of that. Next is 445-21, and that's a resolution approving an honorary street name for Reverend Michael Vellante on Van Buren Street between Mayor Art Schultz Drive and Scott Street. He was a prominent member of the community, and he spent so much time on St. Anthony's Church at 100 and Scott Street and here in Joliet, and folks want to recognize that. Next is a resolution authorizing community development block grant, which is 446-21, and that's for the a subrecipient agreement for the Forest Park Community Center. Next is 447-21, a resolution authorizing a community development block grant, and that's for the Northern Illinois Food Bank. Next is the 448-21, a resolution adopting a subgrantee policy for Bureau of Justice Assistance grant. And that's to purchase some funds for some Narcan boxes, et cetera. So we believe that that's the way to move forward. Subject to your questions, that concludes my report.
Quick question, Matt. Yes. Jim, I see we've got a campaign and effort going to modernize our ordinances and to, kind of down streamline them, like going from 206.5 to 207. One of my favorites is dear to my heart. We're not gonna touch it that way. I haven't seen it. Where it's illegal to mispronounce Joliet. And if you do, it's a $5 fine. We're gonna keep that one, right?
We don't enforce it though.
Yes, exactly.
No, let's not get rid of that. I like nostalgia.
We'll have to, Councilman, I can't comment on
It's
that.
buried deep in the annals of our ordinances. There was a big story about it many years ago. Please, don't get rid of it. I like it. All right, that's all I have to say about Joliet.
Thank you.
$5, please.
Next is public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak under public comments this evening?
I think there's an actual ordinance in the city of Joliet for misspeaking the name Joliet. There's actually a fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, $5. You got me covered? You got me covered? Thanks, Mike.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I did receive a request for closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition or conveyance pending or threatened litigation, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
So moved.
Second.
And motion seconded to approve. Councilman Clement?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Guerrero?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Motion carried.